This week on Heroes Made in the USA. He was also recruited by professional baseball teams, but the Denver Broncos are awfully happy John Elway chose pro football. So obsessed were they with proving their loyalty to the United States of America, the 442nd Regimental Combat Unit suffered more casualties than any other unit in American military history. Activist Carol Hodney advises struggling family farmers how to fight off bankruptcy and foreclosure. One of those farmers is her dad.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. Welcome to Heroes Made in the USA. Quarterback John Elway entered the ranks of pro football in 1983 as the most publicized college quarterback since a young man came out of the University of Alabama back in '65 and went to the Jets. Well, I can tell you, it's tough trying to do both your job and live up to the expectations built up by that kind of media coverage. But John did both. In just 4 seasons, he took the Broncos to the Super Bowl.
John Elway emerged from Stanford University in 1983 as one of the greatest quarterbacks in college history. As the quarterback for the Denver Broncos, his ability to pass and run has made him one of the most dominating players in the National Football League, and he's getting better. In his pursuit for excellence in football and in life, John passes on his football techniques to youngsters at his camp in Stanford, California.
Well, my dad and I have had a camp. This is his 6th or 7th year. It first started when he was at San Jose State, and I helped him out there. And now that he's at Stanford, we've had it there for 4 years, and it's just grown each year. The kids come in Monday, and we take them through a week of instruction. And, you know, I think it's a great experience for them. And, you know, I'm pretty much involved there with the quarterbacks. I don't coach the outside linebackers too much because I don't exactly know too much about that.
Yeah, start from there. See, what you were doing is you're going like this and you're bringing it back like this. What you want to do is you want to try to keep those 2 hands on it and throw it from there instead of...
I take a group and then yawn around and try to talk to all of them, try to, you know, watch every one of them throw, and if I can throw in a tip, you know, to help them out. And I think that, you know, it's tough when you get that big of a group to get real personal, but I think that's one thing about our camp is we try to get as personal as we can, and, you know, I'm right down there with them.
John coaches youngsters ages 10 to 18. One of his campers, Charlie Ross, came all the way from Belgium just to meet him.
I like John Elway. He's a great guy. And I wanted to learn more about football to improve on my skills. We watch him on TV just like everybody else, and I've always liked him ever since I saw him in college. He's my favorite quarterback.
The main reason I'm here is because of John. He's been my idol, so I wanted to meet him and hopefully get a few coaching points from him.
Being the best is not an easy task, even for John Elway. He wants to get better, and as long as that's the case, he's going to continue to work hard to get there.
Well, it's something that you strive for your whole life. You want to be the best that you can in your position that you're in, and you know, I'm still striving to be that as a quarterback, and I think that if I keep that attitude, things will come, but it's still hard for me to realize the impact that I can have on other kids' lives and other people's lives.
We take a 3-step drop, we're here, and I hit and I'm ready to throw. I can go
There's
here,
more to Elway's football camp than just learning techniques. The week's sessions are loaded with lectures on success, the importance of team play, academics, and staying away from drugs and alcohol.
So I think if we could just do something that is on the positive side, at a certain point, then the kids have got to start listening, and they've got to, you know, prevent the peer pressure. Say, hey, you know, have some guts, have some confidence in yourself, and be able to stand up to people and say, I don't do that.
Well, I'm talking about evaluating yourself and going out and saying, I want to work to be as good as I can be.
Stanford's coach Jack Elway teams up with his son and 50 other coaches every summer at the camp to promote healthy attitudes on and off the field. And it's his opinion that the success of the camp is due to John's participation.
Like I said earlier,
you know, what John has accomplished and what he's done in professional football as well as what he did in college football, they get the opportunity to hear from him firsthand about the quarterback position as well as football itself.
I just try to give them little insights on, you know, how to read a coverage and, you know, what would be the first guy that I would look to try to figure out the coverage, and the second guy I'd look at, and throwing the ball on timing and the steps into their drops and all those type of things.
everybody would love to play college football and pro football, and these guys have got the desire and they're out here trying. so I love him for that.
John Elway's confidence and strong leadership brought the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl in 1986. Now he wants his team to be Super Bowl champs. As for his campers, he wants them to become confident and dedicated athletes.
I'm glad that I have the opportunity to help them out, and you know, hopefully get the, if you help 10% of them, you've accomplished something.
Coming up next on Heroes Made in the USA, the 442nd rescues World War II's Lost Battalion, and Carol Hodney takes on America's financial giants to save the family farms.
It's a wonderful thing to be born in the United States of America. Unfortunately, there have been times when some of our fellow citizens have had to literally fight for their birthright. Our next heroes did just that. When the going got tough, these tough guys got going and helped America win World War II.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Well, this was Sunday morning, and to suddenly hear the announcer on the radio almost hysterically say that we are now being attacked by the Japanese.
This battle has been going on for nearly 3 hours. It is a real war.
My father and I rushed out into the street and looked towards Pearl Harbor, and sure enough, there were these black puffs, and they were not practice rounds. These were explosive rounds. And suddenly overhead, we could see about 3 or 4 Japanese planes. All I could think of was to curse them in Japanese. You're a bunch of fools.
All Japanese within the coastal area should move inland.
Out of paranoia that the next Japanese target would be the California coast, FDR signed Executive Order 9066. It was an imprisonment by race policy that ordered 110,000 Americans on the West Coast, most of whom were citizens, into relocation camps.
My feeling was, hey, I can't believe this type of thing. We are citizens.
And that was the order of the day, so being a good citizen, you go along with it.
Adding to the insult, and in spite of a coast-to-coast call to arms, was the fact that these American-born citizens were not allowed to join up and fight for their country.
We couldn't volunteer, nor would they draft us. In fact, we were classified 4C, enemy alien.
And that, to me, was a gross insult.
But finally, over a year after Pearl Harbor, a hesitant War Department agreed to let Japanese Americans serve, but only in Europe and only as a separate unit. They called this unit the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. From the beginning, these men were faced with one challenge.
You claim you're good Americans, prove it. So what does that come out to be but put up or shut up time?
From day one at training camp, these guys definitely put up.
We outran, we outmuscled, we outboxed, we outswam, we outhiked all other units in the area.
It's just that we were all out to prove that we're Americans. And, we should be treated as such.
The 442nd finally landed in southern Italy, at the time a bitterly contested German stronghold.
If we did well, we could return to our country with our heads held high.
The 442nd joined forces with the 100th Battalion, a unit of Japanese Americans from Hawaii, and together helped push the Nazis ever northward. The 442nd acquired an increasing reputation as a crack unit that achieved every military objective, along the way suffering so many casualties that they were soon called the Purple Heart Battalion.
Underlying it was pride and accomplishment, saying, yeah, we can do it, and we're going to do it good.
But we were like any other American. We were scared. And like any sensible human being, we didn't want to die.
But many did, especially after the 442nd was shipped to France. Germany was more desperate now. Hitler's army, with its back to the German border, was following orders to fight to the last man.
Well, you could sense that you were then confronting an enemy that was absolutely desperate. It's like desperate animals when they're cornered. But we're now right along the border of their homeland.
The fighting was incredibly fierce. The heavily fortified Germans gave up but a yard at a time, a crossroad at a time. The 442nd was ordered to take Bruyères, a gateway to Germany. It was a bloody street fight that went from door to door and house to house. Survival meant not sleeping for a week. Bruyères finally fell. The exhausted men of the 442nd were at last supposed to be given some rest, but it was not to be.
They woke everybody up and said, come on, we got to go back up. Everybody was complaining, and they said, well, there's a battalion trapped out there. We got to go get them.
Deep in the mountains near Bruyères, the 1st Battalion of the Texas 141st had been cut off, with the enemy closing in on all sides. 2 of their own battalions had failed to get them out.
The word filters down that they can't get through. We've been cut off. Yeah, there's no more ammunition. Use what you got.
The Germans were dug in at vantage points with tanks and heavy artillery. The 442nd was ordered to rescue the Texans at all costs. What ensued was 7 days of pure hell, and one of the most legendary battles of all time, the Battle of the Lost Battalion. Finally, after a one-week nightmare, the 442nd broke through.
I looked off to my left front and saw this guy, real small in stature, but he had an American uniform on.
My first 2 scouts jumped in for cover into that hole and said, you guys need any cigarettes?
And honestly, I don't know what brand it was, but that was the best cigarette I've ever tasted before or since. Those kids were brothers, pure and simple. It didn't matter that their eyes were slant, their skin was a little dark, and they were small in stature. They were American soldiers who had come to pull us out of a jam.
In order to rescue 200 Texans, the 442nd had lost 800 men, dead and wounded, a typical statistic for this regiment. In World War II, the 442nd suffered a higher percentage of casualties and won more medals of valor than any unit in United States military history. These men, who had left home as aliens, had returned as heroes.
Maybe the best way to describe the 442's role in history is to quote President Truman as he pinned the last of our 8 presidential unit citations on our standard. And he says,
you fought not only the enemy, but you fought
prejudiced, and you have won. Keep up the good fight.
Coming up next on Heroes Made in the USA, Carol Hodney fights for an American way of life, and hometown hero Frank Borgia.
Our last hero, Carol Hodney, grew up on a farm in rural Iowa. And like many kids, she lived for the day she could escape to the city. Well, that day came after college graduation. She moved to the urban Northeast. But in the late 70s, when the national economic crisis began strangling small family farms, Carol returned home to help. She knew the farm she saved might one day be her own.
This ear of corn is from my family's last harvest last fall. Through this time, I've been worried that this would be my family's last harvest. I know this will not be the last harvest, but that we will share many harvests of solidarity and hope to come. Thank you.
As executive director of the North American Farm Alliance, Carol Hodney has helped hundreds of farmers throughout the United States deal with the farm crisis. A crisis resulting from years of low farm prices, tightened debt policies, and climbing interest rates. But now she's facing the toughest challenge of all, saving her own family's farm from imminent foreclosure.
I think her reason for wanting these people to stay on the farm is that she believes so sincerely that the family farm on the land will do the best job of providing food for all the people.
Carol is handling her personal crisis using the same techniques that she's used to help others, rallying together for moral support, teaching legal rights and tactics, and political lobbying.
My main reason for being involved in the farm movement stems from my background here on our farm in western Iowa, because I, from my background, have a sense of the values that are at stake in rural America, the values of not only the traditional ones of hard work, but also of community life and of the importance of really caring for each other.
Carroll left that community after college, but was drawn back to Iowa when America's farm economy went into recession.
I felt that I had to find a place to put my organizing skills to work. And so I searched around for about a year for a farm organization that I felt was going to try to make a difference to challenge the farm crisis. In many ways, the farm crisis is a quiet depression because people live in an isolated manner. It's not like we all go to the factory every day and talk with each other. People often quietly bear the burden of knowing they may face foreclosure or knowing that their net equity has declined.
People like Carroll that stand up and say, hey, you know, we can make a difference, that we feel that something needs to be done. People need to be on the land, and they take away your grain, then your livestock goes next, and then your equipment, and then the land, and that's what they've done now. It got us down to where they've taken the land away from us. Our dreams are shattered. That was our life savings. We didn't have any retirement plan, that was it.
I think the main way that I've been able to help people is to take them out of their isolation and give them a sense of hope and a reason to keep struggling. You just received a foreclosure notice? All right, when was that?
Another way Carroll assists struggling farmers is by advising them on their legal options and by teaching them how to fight large financial institutions with armies of sophisticated lawyers. She's at this stage with her own family.
Now that the farm crisis has come home, and specifically now with our situation with our delinquency on our debt, I'm helping them sort through the various legal options that we may choose. We need to show them that we can play hardball too, as far as showing.
But as Carroll and many of her neighbors have learned all too painfully, sometimes the tactics run out, and nothing can stop the dreaded auctioneer's gavel or the sheriff's foreclosure sale.
Several weeks ago in our county seat in Harlan, some 200 farmers came to protest the foreclosure of a family who had lost their farm. And the sheriff was doing the foreclosure sale there at the courthouse, which is common. And people just knew it was wrong. It had not been the family's fault that they were losing their farms, so they wanted to protest the policies that led to that.
Carroll has been able to lobby the support of influential politicians in Washington. One of them a leading presidential contender, Reverend Jesse Jackson.
The American farmers are being driven from their land with no place to go. If our government can bail out Chrysler, if we can bail out Europe and Continental Bank and Israel and Japan, we can bail out the family farmer.
Reverend Jackson was the first major national leader in our country to support our demands for fair parity farm prices and for debt restructuring. Since that time, a few years ago, we've gained the support of many labor unions, churches, environmentalists, and other people in the cities who understand that fair farm prices will help gain some prosperity for our whole economy. It's very difficult for young people to get into agriculture, first of all because they don't have the equity, the land base to borrow money. See, most farmers are at an average age in their late 50s. So now is the time traditionally where there'd be some transfer to the young generation, but there isn't a young generation now. I think farmers do have some eternal sense of hope. I don't know if it comes from the spring and when you're out there planting and there's always something new growing. Family farms are very much rooted in their tradition. They know that their place on the earth is to produce food. And so they will make great sacrifice to fight to stay on their land.
Students at Hiram Johnson High School in Sacramento are never bored in Mr. Borgia's history class. He's been a teacher at the school for the past 22 years. Frank Borgia credits his students for giving him all of his energy.
We sort of energize each other. I give what I can and they give what they can, and somewhere in the middle it mixes, and we seem to enjoy ourselves and at the same time learn.
Frank Borgia's enthusiasm for his job helped him win the title of Teacher of the Year in Sacramento.
Teenagers have so much energy, and they're looking for places to put that energy, and why not U.S. history?
Frank Borgia, this week's hometown hero.
From the football field to the battlefield to the farm field, heroes dig in and get the job done.